In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a clipping mask. So, when you create a clipping mask, what you need is you need at least 2 layers. So I have cropped out a variety of different things, and what I'm going to do is I have several things. I have this image of a fire that I want to clip to the shape of several other things. So what I have is I have the word fire, I have a very intricate shape of this person, and I have cropped out this really basic shape of the fire. It's important that you crop out whatever it is that you want to clip to that shape because it will conform to that shape, and we'll see just in a moment. In your layers, once you're ready to clip, what you want to do is you want to move the layer, the image that you want to clip to the shape, just above it in the layers palette. Then what you'll do is you will right click, scroll down, and you'll select create clipping mask. What that does is it clips the design of the objects on top to the object on the bottom, to the shape of the object on the bottom. And we can see that it has that little marker of an arrow pointing down. And we can see that the shape is that fire shape. And as I turn it off, it's that like very cartoony fire. But I have made it look like the realistic fire. And I can move these around separately, which is really nice. It allows me to move things and to change stuff. So you can see that I move this fire around. And if I move it down too far, notice how it's only clipped as far as that object exists. So if I move it down too far, it won't fit that area, which can be really cool. I can make it larger, I can make it smaller. And I can even move this around, move my clipped shape around, and it'll show different parts. So part of what's a good idea to do is to create a new layer, or when you want to move it, select both layers so you move them as a group, so it's moving both layers at the same time. And if I want to unclip it, I can right click and come to release clipping mask, and it will release those 2 things. So that's clipping it to a very basic shape. I can clip this to a variety of different things. That's why I cropped out this person. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click, come down to create clipping mask, and we can see that we have created that clipping mask to it. And I can clip a couple of things. If say I'm not exactly happy with everything that's there, I'm going to say paint over it. So I created a layer in my layers palette, and you can see that it is separate from. But if I right click and come down to create clipping mask, notice how they both have that arrow that is clipping to that shape of the person. So now I can play around with this more. Maybe what I want to do is I want to use a new kind of paintbrush. I'm going to make this a very basic soft edge brush. And I'm going to make it kind of large. There we go. And I think I just want to make the edges darker. But I could play around with this even more, just so that it feels more ghost-like. Maybe I want to add like a little bit of kind of that blue tone at the bottom because it's, I don't know, burning brighter. And so this is pretty interesting. But all I've really done is if I turn off my clipping layers, if I release the clipping mask, you can see that I have just painted some random things. But when I have it clipped to this specific shape of the person, it only exists and is only shown where that person's shape is, which can look really cool. And I can always alter that shape. Say if I come down to the figure and I want to add this sense of like more fire coming off the side. All I'm going to do is on this person, I'm going to add some small streams of shapes coming from their form. But when I turn on the clipping mask, you can see that they have that it's showing everywhere there's something that exists on that layer. So I can do a lot of pretty cool things. I can paint stuff. I can use the paint bucket tool, and I can create a variety of interesting shapes. Make sure that you crop out your objects, because say I'm going to remove the clipping on these. There we go. And I don't want to clip it to this one that we can see I have not clipped the background out. Even though we're thinking of the shape being the person, the shape actually is this entire square. It's all the background. It's everything that exists on that layer. So if I move this down and I clip it to that shape, really all it's doing is clipping to the square, not the person. So you have to make sure that you have cropped out a person, or cropped out whatever the shape is that you want to show in that area. And this can be very fun. One last fun thing that I will kind of show you is I have this word, I put the word fire there. And so I'm going to clip it to fire, to the fire. And we can see that it kind of fits it all the way. The fire was kind of like the word itself was pretty big. So I think I'm going to make sure that I have this layer, and I'm going to transform it to make it even bigger so that it fits that entire area. And I kind of like it at the top part where we can see a little bit more of the fire. And make sure, if you do this with words, that your words are big enough, that they're thick enough to be able to show something. Because I could change the words themselves by coming back to the layer with the words, changing over to the text tool, and say we'll highlight this all, and we'll change this to another word font style. As much as I like this word font, or this font style, it's pretty small. So I'd probably have to try to make it as big as I can get it so I can see some of the fire, and maybe change it to, well, it doesn't have a bold version of it. So I'd have to like maybe rasterize that layer and resize it so there's enough room to be able to see things that are clipped into there. And that's why I chose that really large font type. Some fun things to do is to come over to the characters over in the character palette, and you can play around with how the words actually look. I can make the words like a little bit taller so that it takes up more space. But again, I have to readjust where my image being clipped to it fits. And if I'm very happy with that, I could merge those together to make it permanent, but that means that I couldn't change what's being clipped to it. Or what I prefer doing is just grouping them together and renaming it. So that is using the clipping mask.